At the time of Einstein, the number one assumption about the universe was that it was static and unchanging. It had always been there. But that came into question. Did the universe have a beginning, or was it in fact always there? The static versus the dynamic universe. This was the great debate of the early 20th century. Einstein was very much a static universe supporter. Einstein did not think that the universe was changing. It had always been there. It always will be. It always was. It always, forever and ever. Okay. But then along came an otherwise unknown astronomer by the name of Edwin Hubble. What Hubble did changed the course of history. Hubble got a degree in astronomy and went to work at the Mount Wilson Observatory just outside of Los Angeles, California. This was the 100-inch Hooker telescope. It was the biggest telescope in the world, the most powerful telescope of them all at the time. Okay, we've got bigger telescopes now, but at the time this was the biggest. And what Hubble did was decide to look at these nebulae. What are these white nebulae? What they were these faint smudges of light on the black backdrop of the universe. What were they? They weren't stars, because they weren't a point. They're not planets, because they seem to be stationary among the constellations. Hubble decided to investigate those. And so he started to put his telescope on them one by one and take long exposure pictures of these things, gather in as much light as possible. In order to do that, he would take these photographic plates and allow the shutter of the camera on this great telescope to open, and he would keep it on that object all night long. And sometimes the objects were so faint that in order to gather enough light, he'd have to close the shutter, go home in the morning to go to bed, sleep for the day, come back at night, open up the shutter, and continue with the same picture. Some of the galaxy images he took 3 nights to take. Talk about patience. They say about Hubble, he was no Einstein, but he was tenacious, and he had great stick-to-itiveness. And so this is why he was able to achieve what he did. And apparently what he did was look at, over the course of 10 years, 50 of these white nebulae, and he analyzed the light meticulously. Now, once he got the images, he started to look at the spectrum, the so-called rainbow of light coming from these light sources. And very quickly, he noticed the spectrum of hydrogen. Now, every element of the periodic table gives off its own unique rainbows. Like, I have fingerprints that are different from your fingerprints. Every element has its own rainbow that's different from the next element. Hydrogen's rainbow is different from helium's rainbow. And this is all based on the electron configuration, the way the electrons move through the energy levels, thanks to the work of Niels Bohr. Okay? Now, when he noticed the spectrum of hydrogen, that told him right away what the stars were made of. Hydrogen. Discovery number 1, he could have stopped there, been fine. But he noticed something else, that the rainbow, this spectrum of hydrogen, let's say it should have been right here, was actually right here. It was shifted, and it was shifted towards the red end of the spectrum, which happens to be a longer wavelength. And he thought, this is curious. Is it consistent through all of these nebulae that I was looking at? And in fact, it was. Every one that he looked at had varying degrees of redshift. Well, he thought, I wonder, is this anything like the effect that we see in sound? So when the train comes into the station with his bell ringing, doesn't the sound of the bell go ding, 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 ding? Doesn't it drop a tone? This is called the Doppler effect. It applies to sound. Kepler wondered, does it apply to light as well? And in fact, it does. And because it was shifted to the longer end of the spectrum, the red end, this red shift meant that the object was moving away. Now, away from what? Well, certainly away from Earth, certainly away from our position in the universe. And so the universe seemed to be expanding. What a brilliant discovery. And what he found was the more distant galaxies were redshifted even more. And therefore, the expansion rate seems to be changing over space and distance. This is an incredible discovery, and it flew in the face of the static universe, including Albert Einstein, who then decided he better contact this young Edwin Hubble and challenge him on this notion. You can't put forth this idea that the universe is expanding, the universe is static. And Hubble said, well, according to my observations, the universe is expanding. Every galaxy I look at is redshifted. So not only did Hubble discover what the stars are made of, he discovered the dimensions of the universe far, far bigger than anybody had ever thought. You see, what he did was he discovered something about the galaxies. There was something in them that revealed the distance to their location. And I'll explain that in the next video.